How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we got to talk about Colin Kaepernick yet again. I know you guys are getting tired of it. I know it's becoming like beating a dead horse. It's a broken record, but at the end of the day, I got to talk about this because I saw this come across my timeline on Twitter, and it really just offended me. It kind of shocked me, and it's to the point now where I'm not really shocked about anything that happens anymore. This is kind of a common occurrence, but even this still shocked me. And what I saw was that Colin Kaepernick will be included in the Smithsonian's African American History and Culture Museum in Washington, D.C. within the next 1 to 2 years. Now, this really shocked me for a few reasons, but before I get into it, I just want to tell you how it came to be. Now, there's a man named Dr. Harry Edwards, who is a professor over at UC Berkeley of Sociology. I'll place his picture on the screen before you and some information about him in the box below. But basically, he was the guy that got everything together. Somehow he acquired a game day jersey, maybe some shoes, a picture of him, etc., a few items from Kaepernick, and he went to the Smithsonian and is like, hey, we need to get this in the Smithsonian like right now. We don't want to wait till later. We want to do it right now because he is this generation's Muhammad Ali. Now that I found to be laughable. First of all, Muhammad Ali, what he did was much greater in scope than what Colin Kaepernick did, even if you disagree with either one. Just look at them from what they were. First of all, Muhammad Ali, when he did what he did, he was a heavyweight champion of the world, and his title was stripped, and he went to jail because he did not want to go fight over in the Vietnam War, right? Because, at that time you had to draft and you were being conscripted. So because he didn't want to do that, he got his title stripped away from him. It was a much bigger stance than what Colin Kaepernick is doing, because taking the knee on the football field is not illegal. First of all, it's not against the law. You won't go to jail for it. And it's not even against the NFL policy. There is no policy about standing before the national anthem. People do it out of a sign of respect, but there is no policy that says that if you don't stand for the national anthem, you get suspended, because Colin Kaepernick obviously did not get suspended for that. It just upset people because they felt like he was just trying to disrespect the country, because you combine that with this stance about the flag, talking about, well, I'm not going to stand until some change happens in the country, right? You got guys like Marshawn Lynch who's doing the same thing, but he's been doing that his whole career. And Jack Del Rio, the coach of the Oakland Raiders, where Marshawn Lynch plays, asked him about it. And he said, hey, this ain't nothing. This is just me doing me. I'm not standing for no kind of political stuff. I'm just doing my own thing. Now, I can respect that. I don't like the fact that he's not standing for the national anthem, but at least he's not making a whole big spectacle out of it and trying to get a lot of attention as a result. I think people saw him do that because everybody's looking out for it since the whole kerfuffle with Colin Kaepernick ensued. But I digress. Now, this whole situation is really crazy, because just beyond him not really doing a lot, just taking a knee on the field, you going out there giving money and stuff to charity, that's fine, but everybody does that. Does that mean you get a space in the African American History and Cultural Museum just for being a humanitarian? Like, does that grant you a space in there? The reason why he's there is because of the whole stunt on the football field with taking a knee, talking about you standing up for injustice, but at the same time, you don't even vote. So if you're taking a stand, air quote, stand for quote unquote injustice, then why not vote? Why not use the most powerful tool you have in your arsenal to be able to fight it? You taking a knee on the field may garner a lot of attention and a lot of press and a lot of publicity, but what about actually voting? If people are in office that are making policy that make life more difficult for the African American, for you, for your children, for your girlfriend, your mom, dad, whoever, then you should go into the ballot and then fight it that way, right? That's how you should do it, ballot or the bullet. I mean, maybe I'm wrong about that. If you feel different, let me know in the comments below. But to move on from that, why this is really egregious is because you have a certain somebody who's not in the African American History and Culture Museum right now. And that certain somebody is Clarence Thomas, the only Black Supreme Court justice on the bench right now, and only the second one in U.S. history after Thurgood Marshall. Now, Thurgood Marshall was a Democrat, and I think he is honored in the museum and also in the National Portrait Gallery, but I'll get to that a little bit later. So he's in there. He's all good because he's a Democrat. But Clarence Thomas, he's not in the museum, even though he's only the second Black Supreme Court justice ever. And he's serving right now. He's not in there, right? But Colin Kaepernick can get in there while he's still playing, and he didn't even really do that much. It's a political game that we're playing here. And then Clarence Thomas, talk about him for a moment. I mean, this is somebody that really should be in the museum. I mean, really, I want to say beyond almost anybody else, because this is somebody that's risen to like the highest level that you can possibly get outside of being the president or something like that. A very important role that he has, being in the Supreme Court justice, being able to shape the direction of our country. That's a very important position to have. And to be the only second black person to have it, he should most certainly have a spot right there. And then beyond that, beyond his position and beyond his status and, you know, the historical relevance of that, let's look at his personal life growing up, coming from nothing, you know, coming from, you know, a single parent household with your mother struggling and then moving in with your grandparents later. Not even really speaking English all the way. He spoke Gullah as his first language, which is like a island Creole, you know, because he came from Savannah, Georgia, which is right there on the coast, not far from South Carolina, and those islands right there, the Geechee Islands. He was speaking that kind of language. It's like, you know, being a Jamaican and coming to America and speaking fluent English without any kind of accent, basically. So he came from that, like, you know, working on the farm, kind of like sharecropper. He came from that to rise all the way up. Now, Thurgood Marshall, I respect, but at the same time, look at Thurgood Marshall's face. Like, look at his old pictures. He looks whiter than Colin Kaepernick does, and Colin Kaepernick is mixed with one black parent and one white parent. So I'm just saying, you just put two and two together. There is an issue there with the whole light skin, dark skin thing. And his parents, from what I know, were pretty much like middle class. He grew up kind of middle class, went to college, had a pretty, you know, decent life coming up. His life was different than that of one Clarence Thomas. Now, I'm not saying one is better than the other, but if you want to talk about somebody struggling and the struggle, I think Clarence Thomas most certainly represents that more than Thurgood Marshall if we're going to do some kind of measuring, right? And the reason why I bring up the so-called struggle is because at the National Portrait Gallery, which is right up the street away from the African American History and Cultural Museum, you have a display talking about the struggle, which features people like Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, and one very curious person, Margaret Sanger. Yes, that Margaret Sanger. Planned Parenthood, 17.5 million black babies that have been aborted since 1973 Roe v. Wade, something that Margaret Sanger was in defense of. She's a eugenist, somebody that was racist towards blacks. She is in a display with other black figures talking about this is part of the struggle. I'll put the actual literature, the copy, the text on the screen before you that is on the website as it relates to her bust in this display. And you'll see how disgusting it is. But this person is honored right down the street from the African American History and Culture Museum in a display with other people, including Thurgood Marshall. But there's no Clarence Thomas in the actual African American History and Culture Museum. I'm confused. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But you know what? I'm kind of like being dramatic a little bit. It does make sense because I know why this has happened. I know why they don't want to have Clarence Thomas in there. I know what it is. It's all about a political game. You like Thurgood Marshall, and that's fine because he's a Democrat. You like Colin Kaepernick. You can have Thomas Jefferson in the actual African American Museum, and that's fine. You can have Margaret Sanger in the struggle exhibit. That's fine. But, oh, God forbid you have Clarence Thomas in there because he's a Republican. He's a conservative. He's against black people. He's a coon. He's an Uncle Tom. See, this is how the anti-black conservative tone goes all the way to the top. You got guys as in UC Berkeley that want to put an inflammatory figure who's not really done anything of any kind of importance other than any other humanitarian. It's like, look, okay, the whole thing with handing out suits to felons and giving money to charity and going to Africa, stuff like that, that's all good and well. You know, bravo, hats off to you. But at the end of the day, why does that give you a space in the African American History and Culture Museum above a guy like Clarence Thomas? I don't have much more to say. That was just my 2 cents on it. I really want to get it off my chest because that's really just unfair. But at the end of the day, it shows you how deep Washington, D.C. liberal partisan politics are. So what do you think? Do you think that Colin Kaepernick deserves to be in the museum? If so, why? Why does he deserve to be there? Why would he be put adjacent to Muhammad Ali? Now, whether you agree with Muhammad Ali or not, let's just look at what they did side by side. I mean, compare what they did side by side and you give me your honest opinion. Do you think that they are comparable in any kind of way? Is what they did the same? And tell me about Clarence Thomas. Why don't you like him? Are you still triggered about the whole thing with the pubic hair on the Coke can, the allegations with Anita Hill? Is that it? Right. And if you like Clarence Thomas, let me know why. I mean, I think Clarence Thomas, if nothing else, is somebody that should be looked up to in the black community as somebody that came from nothing, that made it to something, who's had a lot of trials and tribulation in their life, but was still able to succeed. Somebody that has gotten a lot of adversity from all sides, black, white, everybody, all throughout his whole life, but has still been able to thrive and move on with his life in a positive way. That's what I think we should look up to in the black community, not guys like Colin Kaepernick that just want to be social media stars, gaining attention, self-aggrandizing. But that's just my 2 cents. Whatever your thoughts are, let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.